I built a financial plan that would last forever for this family. They've got a lot of money invested with me. The way it is designed, it would be difficult for them to outspend their money based off of their lifestyle and the way we've got this wired up for them. But what I realized was every time I would set a meeting for both of them so we can go over everything, the quarterly reviews, the annual reviews, when we really dig in, he would come by himself. And most of the money that was moved over, it was his 401k and his IRAs, and it mainly had his name on it because it was qualified money. But that doesn't mean it's not important to her, because it's her future too. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Cowboys and Cufflinks show. I'm Jeff Mathies, CEO of Mathies Financial Partners. I'm joined today by my right-hand man, Caleb Moore.
Good morning, everyone.
It's too often that we're sitting in the room with a family, and when we're asking, tell us about what your concerns are when it comes to retirement and to finance, it's all too often that the man has a lot of stuff to say. And when we look at the spouse, she generally doesn't know what questions to ask. She doesn't know what to be concerned about. Her only concern is there going to be enough to last? And we've had this challenge. It's been this way for years. And I think that the main reason we run into this so often, you have to go quite a ways back in time when you think about the way the original nuclear family worked in our country. And you think about your grandparents and your great-grandparents. It was probably the man that went to work every single day, and his job was to bring home the money. And the wife's job was to make sure the kids are raised, to make sure that they're behaving, and she ran the house. Both of those jobs are equally important to each other. They're critical. But we got to a space where it's too expensive to be that way. A single income household it's not the norm anymore. You have to have two incomes just to make ends meet. And what that did is it introduced women, the spouse, the women into how all of the financial stuff works when it comes to 401ks and 403bs and IRAs. And we still find that it's a tendency for the man to take control of a lot of the investing stuff. And this really hit home with me last week. I was having a conversation with a client of mine, with a client family of mine. They had been clients of mine since 2013, I believe, somewhere around there. And I was asking him the questions, and he's answering, and I noticed she's not talking. And they leave, and they go home, and then I get an email. And the email's asking me a whole bunch of questions about fees and about if they're in the right place because of their age and all of this stuff. And here's what happened. I realized the fact pattern that lined up to this, and then it's relative to a lot of other people out there. Here's what happened. When we started meeting together in 2013, I built a financial plan that would last forever for this family. They've got a lot of money invested with me. The way it is designed, it would be difficult for them to outspend their money based off of their lifestyle and the way we've got this wired up for them. But what I realized was every time I would set a meeting for both of them, so we can go over everything, the quarterly reviews, the annual reviews, when we really dig in, he would come by himself. And most of the money that was moved over, it was his 401k and his IRAs, and it mainly had his name on it because it was qualified money. But that doesn't mean it's not important to her, because it's her future too. And it dawned on me some time ago that he comes to everything and she shows up for nothing. And what's going to happen if something happens to him? She doesn't know what's happening. She doesn't know what's going on. And if I started talking about all of the stuff that we had lined up and the decisions that we've made on how the income streams are going to work, she wouldn't know what to do. And so when I get this email from her last week, it was like, oh man, I need to own this and be much more diligent about when it comes to a husband and a wife. They've both got to be part of the deal. They have to. And it's our rule. I mean, we have a rule that before you can become a client, husband and wife must come to every single appointment, like the introductory appointment, the decision making appointment when we're like, here's what we think you should do to fix all this. They both have to be there. But where we, I think, have kind of relaxed is after they become clients, somebody always takes charge, and I've got to stop that. I've got to make sure that both people are fully engaged, because here's the reality. His health is not as good as hers. And it is a monumental task for a spouse to try to get into the figure it out stage when they're in their 80s.
And when they're grieving.
It's not fair. It's not fair to the spouse. So here's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about the importance of the financial literacy component for the women. Now, when I say that, I'm not saying that the men of the house are failing their wives. That is not what I'm saying. So calm down, guys, if you're listening to this in the car or you're watching this.
But sometimes they are. I mean, they
maybe, but that's not what I'm saying right now. And, one of the first questions I ask families when they come to see us, and I will look, I'm going back and forth between the two, and I'm saying, what is the absolute most important thing for you when you think about your future and retirement? And the man will almost always say, I want to make sure that if something happens to me, my spouse is taken care of. Almost every time. And when I talk to the spouse, generally the female will say, I want to make sure there's enough money to last. So the reality is women generally have a longer life expectancy than men. And we can talk about all of the stupid things that men do to make this a very solid statistic, but we won't. That's definitely a different show, maybe even a different podcast altogether. But the reality is men want to make sure their families are taken care of. And it's just so easy when you're investing and you're going through the planning process to just take control, because you always have kind of been the leader of the family, right? Your job is to be the alpha. And money it's a critical component to survival. As some people don't realize that. Maybe it's because they haven't saved enough, or they just haven't realized what it's like to live without it, because there's so many free benefits out there in the world. But we have to do a better job at getting information and financial literature in front of the female investors.
Absolutely. If I can break in for a second, when the ladies come in to see me, especially single ladies or widows or divorcees, they generally echo the same sentiment of the experience they've had with investing. They felt disempowered and disrespected and perhaps worst of all, unheard. They walk into a male generally, because that's 90% of this industry, and they end up being told what they should do and never listened to. And that has been their experience with a lot. And I think that's why our client retention is so high, is because we will force them to be heard, even if they're not comfortable speaking out in a meeting. We want to know their opinions. I hate when the man is answering everything and the wife says same. Yeah. That just makes me want to get in and get inside her head a little bit and see where she's really at, because when it comes right down to it, all of us married guys know when the wife puts the hammer down, she's going to make the decision. And so, I mean, it's very important in all aspects to hear from the ladies and listen to what they're actually saying.
Yeah.
And they're not getting that in other places.
It's a good point. So what do you do about that? Well, you got to start getting the information out there. One thing I want to do if you're in the car and you're driving, you're going, man, they're talking about me. I don't understand all this stuff. Listen, don't feel bad. There's a lot of people out there. If you are a woman that is lacking the education when it comes to financial literacy and you really want to figure it out, now is the time. You don't wait any longer. It's time right now to figure it out.
Doesn't matter what your age is.
It doesn't matter what your age is. I have a guide for you. It's called Her Rules, Her Retirement. And it talks about all the things that women go through, the challenges that they face. And this is not a political guide of any kind. It's full of factual data. And I'll give you an example just to get it out of the way. It is a fact that most of the time, men make a little bit more money than the women. It's a fact. It's a statistical fact. I'm not saying it's right, but I'm saying that's the way it is. This guide talks about that and explains why sometimes that can be a hurdle for women to get over so that they can start to save money. And the problem that I run into, here's what I love about meeting with women who've got questions, because they tend to ask lots of really, really good questions.
Yeah, once you make them comfortable and realize you're not going to make them belittle them for not knowing. I mean, I love to teach. You love to teach. So when people have honest questions, and it doesn't matter what their knowledge base is, are they just barely trying to figure it out, or are they halfway there? I enjoy that part. So never feel bad for asking what you think is a dumb question, because I promise you I've heard that same question many, many times.
So this guide is really good. And how do you get that guide? Here's what I suggest you do. You go to the Cowboys and Cufflinks website. There's a section in there that says request the retirement readiness kit. We are going to put this guide inside the kit for you when you request it. But what I need you to do, number one, request it. And number two, there's a section in there that is an optional section when you're putting your information in so we can mail this to you, that says, what is it that brought you to the website? What is it that you need from us? I want you to put in there, send me that guide for women in retirement. I'll know exactly which one you're talking about. The staff is ready to go with it, and we will put it in there. We don't have a tremendous amount of these. So if you want that guide, you have to identify that that's exactly what you're looking for, and we make sure we get it out to you. Again, one of the big pieces to the puzzle when it comes to the figure it out stage, a lot of times is the unexpected. It's like they don't know what questions to ask. And when we're asking in the planning process, when we're asking the families as a unit, what happens if something happens and we pick one? What if we kill the man off in our example? What happens if your husband dies? What is life going to look like for you? They're unprepared, both of them. They're unprepared. How much income is going to be lost if the part of the Social Security goes away? Are you going to lose pension money? Is there an investment that's paying a static income stream that will then go away as well? Or is it going to be greatly reduced? What does the health insurance aspect look like to that? What tax bracket are you going to be in now that you're filing as a single person? What happens to the Social Security tax? There are so many questions. And nobody, I feel like a lot of people are unprepared for this.
Oh, absolutely. And it's not easy to find actual educational materials out there in the world. I mean, the internet's huge. We all know that. And we also know that 90% of it's crap. And you can't get real answers for what you're looking for just by a Google search. Yeah.
So this show today is for two types of people. It's for the men who are saying, man, I need to make sure I get my wife educated on this. I need to get as much information to her that is easy to process. And sometimes they process it better than the men do.
100%.
It's for the men who are saying, I want to make sure that she's up to speed on how this stuff works. And it's also for the women listening or watching who are saying, I don't know a lot about this, whether you are single or you are married. This show is for you. And my goal today is to try to get you to a stage of comfort where you'll go, yep, I'm going to ask for some help. I'm going to ask for some guidance. So again, here's my suggestion. I want you to grab a piece of paper and I want you to start writing down all the questions that you could possibly have about retirement and about the way that you and your family are positioned from an investing standpoint and what do you have saved? And if your job was to convince me that you guys have got it all worked out, I would say the way that you take all of these notes and you jot all this stuff down is you try to sell me on the idea that you've got it all figured out. Here's what we've done for this if this happens. Here's what we've done if one of us passes away. And if you've got a whole bunch of question marks at the end of those statements, then that's where we need to begin. That's where the conversation starts. But the first thing you got to do is you got to own the fact that maybe you need to ask for some help.
And like I said, when the ladies go out into the world and ask for help in this area, a lot of times they don't get treated the way they need to be treated in order to feel comfortable with the process. And it's just, we won't mansplain you, I promise.
The conversation has always been tough. And I'll give you an example of this. Like when I look at the women in my life, I have been blessed with go-getters. Like they just crush it. It starts all you go all the way up to my mother. Like my mother was the director of women's health for a major hospital in Texas. Like she was a rock star in the boss woman world, right? Don't say the other word. She was a boss. And you work your way down. My wife, she's a boss. She's got it all figured out. If something happens to me, she can run with it. She's good. She's got a great job. She makes incredible income. You go down to the kids. We've got one kid that is a nurse. She's doing great. We've got one that's the director of operations for this company. She's doing great. The women in my life, I've been blessed to have very powerful women who are great question askers, if you will. And like my kids, they went to their first financial conference. I think they were 12 years old. And we had them at Duke Energy Center in Cincinnati. And they were in there going, I don't know why we're here. And I'm like, just pay attention. It's important. And they loved it. It was great. But not everybody has that opportunity. And life is busy. Life is not always easy. And a lot of times, I would say all the time, people just don't know what questions to ask.
100%. Yeah, that's the biggest hurdle to get over is what questions do I really ask? When I teach a class, it's an educational class, but it's really about giving that person the ideas for what questions pertain to them. And at the end of the class, if they have a bunch of questions, then I know I've had a successful class, because you can't give everybody the answer in an hour-long class. You can't give answers in an hour-long meeting if you don't know what the questions are. So that's step one.
Let me ask you, when you're because you definitely end up in your position in the company, you end up meeting with more families directly. That's your job. So when you're meeting with single females, let's use the single females that you've met with, the questions that they ask, you always come out and go, man, that was a really good meeting. She asked a tremendous. Once you get them comfortable, like you said, they ask great questions. So if you were to think of maybe the number one question that you get asked in the office, what is that question?
Normally from the ladies, it's, am I going to have enough money to take care of myself and my kids when they need it?
Okay.
So that's a pretty universal question with the ladies. They're very family oriented. And they think of themselves in the second place. Kids come first.
I always find that when I'm meeting, when I have the opportunity to meet with the successful saver that's in the females, what I find is they do a tremendous job at saving. Like if they have a fear that they're going to run out of money, they tend to just stockpile tremendous amounts of money.
Oh yeah. Do you remember the couple that we met with? And I know you're going to know who we're talking about, when she was the driving force between saving and finance in the house, and his job was yes, dear. And yeah. She is I love that lady. Yeah. I mean, that type of thing, and all she does is just absorb information.
Yeah. And I remember the questions she was asking. They were really good.
Deep.
Yeah, they were great questions. And if I took a room full of men and a room full of women, and I went in there and said, okay, here's what we're gonna do, I bet the men would be like, yeah, that sounds good. Let's go for it. And the women would be like, wait a second. I got a couple questions.
It starts young, because, part of my fun time is I'm a hunter education instructor. And every year we do a group of Boy Scouts and a group of Girl Scouts. And Gretchen takes the Boy Scouts and I take the Girl Scouts. The girls always outshoot the boys, and they always score better on all the tests. Why? Because they listened, they asked the right questions, and they paid attention. So they always do better.
They always do better. There was a book called Smart Women Finish Rich. Do you remember this book?
Yeah.
We used to give these out all the time. And I think we need to order a bunch more of those, because I feel like after this show, hopefully we have some people going, these guys they've got a process that is geared towards investing for women. And hopefully people say, hey, I'd love to see that book. The guide is great. The book is fantastic. The guide's 20 pages. The book is 150, and it is deep about here's what you do if you want to be a successful investor as a woman. I think it's great. And how do you get that? Well, here's my suggestion. you've got a couple of options. If you're listening today, man, woman, whatever, and you've got questions you just want to get out of the way, call us. The phone number is 719-434-3939. If you want to get your hands on the guide, it's called Her Rules, Her Retirement. What you need to do is go to the Cowboys and Cufflinks website. There's a little button down at the bottom that says Request the Retirement Readiness Kit. And I want you to do that. Put all your information in there. We'll mail the kit out to you. But what you have to do to get this guide, because there's not very many of them, there's a section in there where you can leave us a message about what got you interested in requesting the kit. I want you to put in there, I want the guide for women. I'll know exactly what you're talking about, and we'll make sure that goes into your kit, and we'll blast it out to you. I've got a lot of positive feedback off that kit, especially the self-awareness test that's in there. It's a question. It's like a quiz you can give yourself, and you rate yourself off of how well you are prepared based off of the questions that are in there. Nobody will see it but you, and you'll have the opportunity to see how well are you really prepared for life, retirement, and investing in the future. I would suggest everybody request that. I think it's very powerful. Okay, moving on. On today's show, we're really focusing heavily on the woman investor and investing specifically for women, even though we obviously meet with anybody who has questions and is coachable. But for me, I feel like we have not done a great job on putting enough literature out there for the single female investor or just the female investor who wants to be educated beyond what her current level of understanding is on how money and investing works. And I feel like the reason we don't do a great job of that is it's almost hardwired into us as men to try and take control of everything that we think we need to be positioned to protect our families, right? We were always the hunter-gatherers, and we try to build the houses if we can, and the money just kind of falls into that same category of we want to make sure it's done right, and that way if something happens to us, we've got enough left for our spouse. Where we screw it up is we forget to teach them on how all this crap works as soon as we're gone. And the reality is, statistically, we're going to punch out well before the wife does. So we've got to do a better job of men of getting this information out in front of them. So 5 tips I've got for you. There's 5 things I want to put out there for you that if you're the female investor and you're listening and you're trying to figure it out, here's 5 tips that you absolutely need to write down and be prepared for. The first one is you've got to spend a little time educating yourself. Whether that is you ask us for help, we'll blast out a ton of information for you. And by the way, if you just want to come in and ask us all the questions that you've been stockpiling your entire life about money, investing, and saving, we will open the door for you. You come on in and you ask whatever questions you've got. We expect nothing in return. If we help you become more educated, then that is a win for us. So number 1 is educate yourself. Spend a little bit of time every day. It doesn't have to be a ton, but I would also caution you, be very careful about where you're getting your information from. The clients that I mentioned in the first segment today, where I said, man, I feel like we really blew it because she was never coming to the meetings, where she got all the questions that she sent me in the email was she went online and she had a conversation with an AI bot. It wasn't even about money. It was, at my age, what's retirement supposed to be like? She was just trying to figure out what is it like to have a conversation with AI. AI led her down the path of you should take all of your money and stick it in bonds paying 4%. And I'm like, inflation's 3.8% right now. You're going to get a bond with a coupon rate of 4%?
That's going broke safely.
Oh my gosh. And so this is where the email questions came from. And I thought, this is a mess. But educate yourself. Be careful where you get it. There's a lot of good books out there that will talk about how to invest prudently and how to save prudently.
Right behind you there on the shelf is probably the best book undoubtedly the best book out there on how to invest prudently, in my opinion. And it's called Experiencing the American Dream by Mark Mattson. And it is a resource like none other for somebody. And it's not all about numbers. It's not boring. Open it up and read Whispers. Just see where the company came from and how it got there. It is a tremendous, tremendous research.
This is a good book.
It is. Yeah. And it's on Audible too for those.
6-time national bestseller. This is an incredible book. We have 500 of these at our office.
At least.
If you come to our office and spend 15 minutes with us, we're probably going to give you one of these.
Yep.
It's a good book.
And it's on Audible for those of you that like to drive down the road and be educated. But our educational experiences never end. We have a ton of live Zoom educational, hour to an hour and a half classes that are available. We have a 2-day seminar that is just mind-blowing that we have in Scottsdale about 4 times a year. Unfortunately, the summer ones are a little warm down there, but the fall and winter ones are great.
Very well air conditioned.
Our education never stops. So if you get into this, you say, yeah, I want to know more. And they're complimentary. They're not something that you have to pay to view.
Okay, the number 2 thing, as a female, I want you to do to be prepared is name your fears. What do I mean by that? I told you earlier, grab a piece of paper and start writing down your questions. Well, in addition to that, what is it that is on your mind that's got you fearful about the future when it comes to money, when it comes to investing, when it comes to saving at any capacity? Maybe your number 1 fear is running out of money. Maybe your number 1 fear is that the income is going to stop or it's going to be cut in half if you lose your spouse. I want you to write all of those fears down, because the first step to finding solutions and finding answers to those fears, you just got to get them out. You got to put them out in front of you. And it reminds me of conversations we've had with people where we say, we ask them, have you thought about this? And they're like, absolutely not, because that's terrifying. And we don't want to talk about terrifying things. So we never talk about that. And the reality is, when it comes to retirement planning, you have to prepare and you've got to ask those questions.
It's funny. There was a big research project done about what retirees fear the most, and death came in third, right behind running out of money and divorce. So, I mean, it's obvious that, running out of money is first and foremost in people's mind, even more than the inevitable fact that we are all going to go to another place and these bodies are going to die.
I'm with you. Okay. Number 3, the number 3 tip to crushing your financial fear is you've got to turn out the noise. And what do I mean by that? Well, we live in, I guess they call the internet the information superhighway, right? Well, when you think about the news, social media, all of it, you can't escape what's out there. There is noise all over the place. And what you need to remember and consider is that retirement is a decades-long process. Not 1, but sometimes as many as 3. I mean, you can live in retirement 30 years. Caleb says 40 years. Good luck to everybody that can go 40.
Some people will.
You need to ignore, when you turn on the news and they're talking about how the world's going to come to an end and everybody's money's going digital and it's all going to come crashing down on you. Just remember, they've been saying stuff like this. There's always negative news out there because that's what catches people's eyeballs. You have to turn that mess off. Just turn it off. Turn out the noise. The number 4 tip to crushing your financial fears is I want you to start taking advantage of automation. What I mean by that, you need to set up, there's so much great stuff when it comes to technology that people sometimes are very fearful of it. Well, especially for the women investors, I think the smartest thing that I've seen a lot of our very successful women investors do is they set up automatic transfers. They automate the transfers whenever they've got the paycheck coming in, boom, money leaves that and goes to their savings.
Out of sight, out of mind in the savings. Yep.
Take advantage of automation. Take advantage of the technology that's out there. You just have to be careful about how you're doing it. I would never say you need to subscribe to an automation deal when it comes to investing decisions, because that is a train wreck on a train wreck of disaster. So take advantage of the automation. That is critical. Okay, number 5, choose the right partner. And let me definitely explain what I mean by that, because people can take that the wrong. What I'm not saying is, when I say choose the right partner, I'm not saying that you go find the fun husband that's also the guitar player. And for those of you who are fun husband guitar players, I did not mean any offense by that. When I say choose the right partner, what I'm talking about is a partner in finance, somebody who you can have conversations with that have your best interests in mind, no questions asked.
Yeah.
Caleb and I and all of the advisors at Mathies Financial Partners are fiduciaries. What that means is we must have your best interest at heart before we think about anybody else. It has to be all about you as our clients. So when I say find the right partner, I'm specifically talking about your partner in finance.
Yep.
And if they were to say, Jeff, how do I find that? I would say it's really simple. All you have to do is go to the Cowboys and Cufflinks website, and I suggest you set up a 15-minute phone call with us. It's at the very bottom. If you scroll down, it says, set up a phone call, pick a time, throw your info in there, and we'll have a conversation about what's on your mind. And if you've got questions, we'll do everything we can to answer those. And also, if you are trying to get the guide, Her Rules, Her Retirement, in the little section where it says request the retirement readiness kit, click that button, give us your information, we'll blast it out. And there's a little section that's optional where you can tell us what is it that brought you to the site, what are you hoping to get, or what question do you have. I at least want you to put in that section, I want the guide for women. The Her Rule, if you want to put Her Rules, Her Retirement, or just the guide for women, we will make sure that we put that in your kit. There's a limited amount of those. We don't have a ton of them, so we will make sure that you get that. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been the Cowboys and Cufflinks Show. We'll see you down the road. Thanks for joining me today on Cowboys and Cufflinks. I'm Jeff Mathies, CEO of Mathies Financial Partners, Texas-raised, hospitality first, and focused on helping individuals and families find the perfect financial fit and move toward their American dream with clarity and purpose. If today brought you clarity or raised a question you've been wanting to answer, subscribe so you don't miss what's next. To learn more or take the next step, visit cowboysandcufflinks.com. This has been Cowboys and Cufflinks with Jeff Mathies. We'll see you down the road.